the fear is always that this is it. My luck has run out.
I can get so anxious about the future and so ashamed of the past.
You gain so much wisdom learning to be present.
Now we don't have to take action on what is actually possible. Welcome back to another episode of the New Rules Podcast. It's your girl, Breezy, and I am here with Mr. Adrian Crawford. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to see you. I didn't see you all weekend.
I know. You were traveling, gallivanting the South.
Fully Alabama.
Alabama.
Through Mississippi to New Orleans. I went to New Orleans for the first time in my life.
Well, how'd you like it?
It was like Key West on steroids.
It is. It's very a little overwhelming, right?
I was like, let me go to this little jazz set. I was on the streets. And I was like,
yeah, Bourbon Street's wild.
What interesting entertainers among us.
No, food's incredible.
Yeah, and the jazz set was insane.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. So again, and you're going again, right? Are you going coming up?
Yes, I'm gonna go for a little Super Bowl visit.
Look at you.
Though I was really excited, and now I'm like only kind of excited because I like to go places for the first time, and then once I've gone, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And it's also not necessarily who I'm visiting is going to be doing a lot for the Super Bowl, and there's not a lot that I necessarily want to do on my own.
Yeah. So,
but I don't know. I like to do solo trips.
Well, that's where me and my friends. That's where we're supposed to be going in our trip. We're supposed to be going to New Orleans. We were gonna go.
I cannot see that with that.
I know, but I think they're trying to mix it up. They were talking about
doing that for you.
They're doing that for me.
Culture.
Yeah, because I'm like, dude, all we're going is we always go to these white places like Montana.
So they're like, let's go to New Orleans.
They asked me where do you want to go. I'm like,
okay,
I'd be open to going to New Orleans. For me, I would go to New York City.
Yeah,
places like that. And again, we haven't like fully landed. I have no problem going to Montana.
I cannot
honestly
fathom the four of you. It's four, right?
Yeah, four of us
walking down the street.
Like in Bourbon Street?
Bourbon Street.
Dude, listen, that's very loose, so we have to see. I wouldn't mind going to Montana. I've been watching 1923, so, so again, I would love to, go to Spencer's whack.
No, you like Spencer, you just don't like Alex.
I appreciate Spencer at the end of this past episode.
And I think Alex really isn't about that life. I think she's gonna tap out.
I don't know. I know my man Spencer's about that life. He starts spinning, I'm gonna throw you over a balcony. So no, anyway, let's jump into it.
But what I did want to initiate is we've been working on some really cool things. Are you interested in sharing? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, we can. I think that about a year ago, I knew that just felt like there had to start to be a pivot in what we were doing. And what's really interesting is watching really the market when it comes to consulting starting to really, really shrink up. That market is really, I can't remember what the newest numbers were, but it's been just a consistent drop in consulting. And so we've been very fortunate that being ahead of the curve where we were doing DEI, and then as soon as we were in there, just I recognized, okay, DEI, if you don't got good DEI, you ain't got, if you don't got good culture, you don't have a good, if you have good DEI, you don't have a good culture. And I knew once people start pumping money in the market, they weren't going to do that. So we started working on culture, doing that. And then I think we really found who we are. So what that's kind of morphed into is honestly, is the ability I realized, love working with companies, helping them build out what they want to do, but also realize I want to work with people who I really want to work with, because I think that to do the type of work we're trying to do is so transformational. You have to be willing to do the internal work as a executive team. And so what we're really pivoting to now is launching something called New Rules X, where what we're going to be doing is venture capital and really incubation with micro business. And what we mean by that is anything from people who are grossing $100,000 over to maybe $2 million. And we have some companies that gross more than that. But not only investing in those, but also what we're going to be doing is actually starting companies as well. And so super excited about that. Again, and we're going to have it to where people who are operators or who are going to be entrepreneurs in our incubator have to go through our process of what we call our Authentica. Is really just the best way to explain Authentica is this idea of human purpose development, really self-discovery, because I believe that most entrepreneurs, most operators don't ever get to that. So which ultimately they end up creating whatever type of culture they get into. And we want to make sure that we're launching, creating these authentic leaders who are creating authentic businesses into the world. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah. And so we've got some good things coming up. And so if you listen to the pod and you actually are interested in maybe potentially starting something, or, maybe you're an operator and you've operated a small business before, but you want something to do them, man, make sure you reach out to us, because again, we got a lot of opportunity coming up.
Yeah. Email me, Brianna at newrulescollective.com.
There it is.
This is actually really exciting because when I first started working for you, when I was 20, now I'm 25, so 5 years ago, we were talking about something called micro expressions. So the idea that we have now is actually something that we've been talking about for years that we haven't felt like it was a wise or right time to take a decision towards yet, which is really interesting.
It is. It was like I went back and looked at those things when we were like, we want to see all these different like ones happen. And again, I think what it was that it was something that we were supposed to write and do, but it wasn't the timing. I think the process that we've gone through has been amazing, because what we've been able to see is we've been able to work with all different types of companies, see what works, what doesn't work, but then also getting to this place of realizing too, the work we do actually does work. And so now it's like, man, we just want to be able to do that with people we want to do it with and create that and give it to people at all types of levels. And so, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, it's always a challenge because, man, we're pivoting what we're doing. It's not that, we're still going to be doing consulting and things like that.
Yeah, pray for us. We're launching 3 businesses right now.
I know. So it's just kind of like, oh God, what does this look like? And it's startups and you're moving and, cash becomes tight and all the stuff like that. So, but again, these are the moments where, things happen and it's greatness that takes place in these types of moments. So super excited about kind of moving forward with it. Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk about the dense nature of time, and I actually think it's super relevant to what it is that we just talked about, considering this has been an idea that's been on your mind for a very long time, and how that's played out within our time. So can you start off by just describing what you mean by the dense nature of time?
Yeah, I've been really thinking a lot about time and seasons, and the reason why is because I think that we don't have a great understanding of time. When you think of time, most of the time we look at it as just like this straight line across, right? You look at your past, you look at your present, you look at your future. But time is very much so dense. Time is very layered, because when you think about your past, there's multiple things that are in your past. It's not just only your individual life. Most times that's what people do, their individual journey, their present journey, their future journey. But you have a family of origin that's a part of that. You have as well the environment you grew up in, the nation you grew up in, the technology that was happening during that time. Then you get to the present. All those things are there. You get to the future. All those things will be there as well. So again, time is very layered. And if you only see it in a very thin kind of way, what you will do is you will just be kind of living in the moment, and you'll miss so many things. Even from your past, you'll miss things that actually have shaped you, and things in your future that you'll miss. And so again, I think that's why time is really, really important. And I think our view of time matters, because it allows us to understand the seasons that we're in, to be able to know how to execute, what to do, who we are, how do we really add value during this time.
So I think it would be good for us to kind of go through each, the past, the present, and the future. So we start with the past. Why would you say that it's crucial that we have a good understanding of our context? Because
I think that, you need to have a good understanding of your context of your past, because even your family of origin, it's like, your grandparents' DNA, like, it's in your bones, right? Like, their hopes and dreams are in there. And a lot of times we wonder why we have desires for certain things, and we just think, oh, I just naturally like that. But if you actually unpack that, means I guarantee you go back and find some family members who, like, they were entrepreneurs, or man, they were very much so, the party planners, or the people who gather people around, or the community leader, or whatever it may be. And it's something that gets passed on. So understanding that, because what you can begin to realize, like, oh, they enjoy that. But what happened? What do I need to look out for? Because, man, what did they do really well? What made them good? What made them bad? See, knowing those things matter. Knowing when you grew up, what was happening. Like me, I grew up in the 80s, right? In the height of the crack era. Right? And so as a black man, there was so much that was going on during that time. There was so much pressure. There were a lot of my friends who grew up where their fathers were gone. There were no jobs, things like that. So a lot of these young men who were fathers, but they begin to sell dope. And so in doing that, again, right, wrong, again, don't think it was right, but what happened sudden, like, people start getting locked up. So you got a lot of single kids, single parent homes, and how that impacts people. So that was a part of what was going on in our country. Technology started to rise. And so, man, you start getting a lot of individual technologies during that time, the TV, so before, man, everybody used to be on the front porch and, hanging out, Now all of a sudden people start having TVs individually in their room, gaming systems. You start doing that. You start playing. And so now that becomes a thing, how you start moving from videos to DVDs and all that starts to change. All those things matter because they shape you. I tell people, I have my memory. I can memorize a lot of stuff because, we only had videos, so you had to watch the same video multiple times. So you just memorize stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so, you just didn't have Netflix where I could watch a million different things. But you know
what's a movie quote that you can just throw out right now?
Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn. From Trading. I can't believe that's what. No, from Trading. I like the movie Trading Places. Is one of my favorite movies. I could quote pretty much the first half the movie. Spaceballs, I can quote almost the entire movie. That my wife, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So there's a lot of movies anyway.
You're so goofy. No, I just have to say, in living with your family, how I'll just walking around the kitchen doing random things, and you'll just walk out of your room and just start blurting out random movie quotes.
Dude, it's in me. I love again, I just grew up and I would do that a lot. I just would watch movies and I just remember I would find movies I just really like and I just would watch them over and over and over again. One of my favorite movies I never really talk about is a movie called Big Trouble in Little China with Kurt Russell. It is, I'm telling you, in the 80s, one of the most epic movies of all time. But anyway.
But that's important because you actually have an incredible memory for very specific things. And I think that if you grew up in a different time, that your memory would look different now.
Absolutely. And also my memory, you're right. There's just things I look at and I would evaluate. I can see the specific things that matter, that move things. Other thing is that playing basketball, how that affects me now is because we had 110 plays we had to have. I had to process information really fast. I had to know when our best player hadn't got a shot in 3 possessions. I'm playing in front of 10,000 people. Somebody's guarding me. I'm dribbling up the floor. I got to figure all this out as I'm going in real time and in real action. These things are taking place. And so, it made me process information fast. So knowing the past helps you understand maybe even skills that you have right now. Because I think sometimes we may miss those skills. I used to reject a lot of the basketball stuff I did when I got in business because I didn't want to be known as the athlete, right? But what I realized is that, man, athletics taught me so much about team. That's all business is you're working with the team, the individual things that you learn, the toughness, the communication. A lot of that I learned there. And so being able to know how your past really shaped and molded you can really help you be aware of the skills and abilities you actually have that you can bring in the current.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom that we can come to learn when we take a look at the patterns of our life. How do you think that you have practiced thinking deeply about your past?
I think that when I started therapy, it was really helpful. But I also even think before I started therapy.
What did therapy do for you that was helpful?
It made me really look and start looking at patterns of my past. It made me start to think of just, and also it made me think about things I thought was just normal that I started to realize was not normal, good and bad. I started realizing that my ability to understand even patterns of things in my intuition, I would just make decisions, do things, and I had no idea why I was doing these things. I just did these things. And so when I would do them, it was just like part of the process. And I realized oh, that's a superpower. Or the fact of the matter, how I grew up and coaching and playing and things like that, and how the environment was very, very tough. And I thought that was just kind of normal. But I'm like, oh, no, y'all didn't go through that? And it's like what that built inside of me. So either way, those things kind of built something a little bit different in me.
If I were to ask you today in your present moment, what is the greatest marker of your past? What's the first thing that you think of?
Akron.
Why?
Because Akron shaped me to be the basketball player I was, which ultimately led to majority of the things I do now. I would not have played basketball at a high level if I didn't move back to Akron. And what that actually taught me and the environment I was in, my dad being a head basketball coach, being in that environment, the people I was around, it really, really impacted me in a really, really major way.
Today you mentioned something about time release capsules, which are embedded histories that nourish or poison us more than we realize. You just mentioned Akron, which would be something that had nourished you. What is a time release capsule that has poisoned you?
The fact that I was very misunderstood, and because I was very misunderstood, I have, and that wasn't handled. As I got older, what would be released was me just wanting to be known and understood and being someone people paid attention to. And a lot of times I would do that in unhealthy ways and manners sometimes, because I was just trying to fulfill that part. And so that was something that I didn't realize was there, but got released in my life, at times. And I would look for my wife to, to always approve of those things, or those who I worked for to approve of those things, or whoever, my friends. And the truth, and so whenever they would disagree with me, I would have an issue with that and all that. Because why? Because I felt like they didn't see me. And so a lot of times I just felt like people didn't understand me or see me, but they actually, some of them really did. It was just they didn't have to agree with me. But I always kind of went agreement, and agreement meant you saw me, whatever. And so that was kind of it. But that was a time release capsule that really impacted me.
When you're within the present moment or you're dreaming about the future, what are circumstances or situations that bring that feeling, fear, anxiety back up within you?
That I'm going to be abandoned, that I'm not going to make it. Like right now, us launching these things. The fear is always that this is it. My luck has run out. We're not going to make it. We're not going to, I'm going to be broke. I'm going to have to sell my house. I'm going to have to just go get a 9-to-5 job. All that goes through my brain right now in these moments when I'm starting something, because of not feeling like, seeing am I good enough to actually accomplish these things. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
A lot of the times I think there's this misconception that, let's take the situation that you just described, that one day you just decide to not feel that way or decide to not be afraid of that. But that's not true. You've just decided to continue moving forward anyway. So how do you think that you've developed that kind of courage?
I think it's just, putting one foot in front of the other. I think at this phase of my life, reminding myself that I've always gotten through it. I think when I was younger, I had no other choice. Now it's no, I've been very fortunate. I feel like that God has given me, he's graced me to be able to do these things. And I feel like he's always shown up, great opportunities. And then I just always remind myself of the breadcrumbs that start to happen. Things that begin to happen in my life that are signs that I should be doing this. And there's been so many different signs that have popped up that we need to be moving in this direction. But for me, sometimes as much as I think about the future, sometimes I'm really slow. I'm slow to make the move. Even this time, I think I was ahead of it. Because I was like, we were going to wait until the beginning of September, October of this year to start thinking about it. And it was right around like February. I'm like, hey, we got to start thinking about this now, last year. And now I think that has gotten us ahead. I think that has moved us forward. And I think the thing I have to do is not slow down, because I feel like what I want to do is like, okay, well, but man, we got these over here and this is kind of secure. Maybe we go get some more of these and this will make us do this.
Yeah, we were even just having that conversation this morning.
Yeah, with our team. Like, maybe we go do more of this. But I'm like, no, we need to go here. We need to go all in here and push it and see what happens.
Most of us, when we look back at our past, we're so aware of the gaps where we haven't been infused with belief and love. How have you become aware of the places that you were infused with belief and love, and the places where there were gaps in your past? How have you decided as an adult who owned your life, owned your decisions, to develop your own sense of belief and love for yourself?
Yeah, I think that I try to remind myself where was those places, because there were, just because you didn't get them in certain places, you did get them in other places, right? One of the places I had belief and love in was the fact that, my parents, specifically when it came to like basketball and sports for me, that like I just had this belief and understanding if you worked hard, that something was going to happen good for you. And the other thing I had a belief in love is that my mother always showed up. I always tell people about that. Like my mom was never late ever to pick me up. My mom was at every one of my games, like unless my dad went to the game. But even her, and she had a debilitating sickness with lupus. even when she was completely like, she was taking chemo for it and throwing up and doing stuff, she still always showed up, always cooked, always provided. And so it taught me that, man, the idea of sacrifice, that my parents showed me love by their action. And so I appreciate that. And so I've taken that, I want to make sure I show my kids that. But on the other side of it, where has it not been? Like I was saying earlier, where at times I felt like that who I wasn't really seen. So I didn't feel loved because I felt like people wouldn't ask me deeper questions. I always have thought so deep about things, but no one would ask me the deep questions of why. No one helped me discover what I was feeling. I was just always in pain emotionally, but I didn't know why I was always in pain emotionally. So no one would ask me the deeper questions why. I didn't get the help I needed till later in life. So I just always thought that something was just so wrong with me because I just had these big feelings in these moments when they were lows. They were so low. And so over time, as I've gotten older, I've learned the process of actually getting healthy enough emotionally to understand those things, to then building the right kind of frameworks, building the right practices, to now where this upcoming year, my biggest thing is like this idea of like really understanding self-value at a very high level.
Just looking at you, like your stature, your intensity, I feel like most people don't really start off with the assumption that you're a really emotional person or you're a really strong feeler, but you have always been. How have you both done the analyzing or the autopsy of your past without overly lingering within it?
Yeah, I think it's because you don't get better sitting. I think that sports injuries have helped me understand, like, you get better by like, it's like, man, when I had my first knee surgery, it was like I had my knee surgery, literally an hour later, I am in the training room and they had me on that machine that was moving your knee back and forth. They had me that day walking around. It was like, why? Because it's like, for me, I'm like, oh man, you just had surgery. You should just be resting, big dog. You don't do anything. But no, they want you moving because movement, even though you're injured, helps build those muscles and things like that. I think that's what happens sometimes, is that when we look back at our past, what we'll do is want to stay there and analyze all of it instead of saying, okay, we're analyzing, but we still have to move forward. What did I learn today? Okay, so how does that affect me tomorrow? So when I'm in work tomorrow or I'm with my family, how did that thing I learned about myself, how does that impact me now? And how can I respond differently? And so that's how you learn to like autopsy and move forward, autopsy and move forward. Because while you want to do the autopsy, you want to see what's the messaging it taught you. And the messaging that it taught you, what's good about that? How do you double down? But what's bad about that? How do you change that? And so that's how you continue to move forward in it. Well, hey guys, I hope today was helpful for you. And here's what I want to challenge you with today. I want you to look at whether it's your past, your present, your future, and maybe just unpack the dense nature. Think about your family of origin in the past. Think about things in your own personal life that's really impacted you. Think about the dynamics of culture of when you grew up and how that impacted you. And then think about as well. And then what I want you to do is say, what are the messagings that you've learned there? Try to take time to critically think, maybe do it in your past, maybe do it in your present, maybe even do it in your future. Until next time, keep writing new rules.